Well, congratulations, first of all, on the Say Rock and Roll album. It debuted #1 on the Billboard charts. And also, at the moment, it is at the top. Alone Together is on Hot FM's Hot 30 Countdown. Yeah, so big round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
Singapore is loving you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And after a 4-year break, how was it like coming back together?
It's great. I think we need the time off, but it allowed us to become better human beings and better at working with each other. So
The good stuff got great, and the awkward stuff got more awkward. In the best possible way.
Like how?
I feel like we all became fully men. You know, I think that when we started the band, we were younger and we were just trying to figure that out. And now I think we all are well set. And, like, I think that we all respect each other, but I think we're all well set in how awkward we are as a band. We're just like awkward dudes.
Awesome. Okay, awkward dudes. I won't hug them. Does anyone have any questions?
I got a question.
All right, Brian.
Okay, just tagging on from that, Morgan Rose, drummer from Seven Dust, and Amelie, superstar drummer, they got together and they were speaking, they agreed on the fact that bands, when they go on tour, they never age. The time they start touring to the time they stop, it's just the same level of maturity. Is it the same with you guys, and how do you sort of mature?
Oh, that's a very valid point. I think that's super real. It's like a time warp when you get, you know, when you start touring as a band.
Stasis chamber.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like part of the thing of us taking a break was that, you know, we got in the van and I was like, I don't know, 18, 19, and then when we, you know, 8 years later we take a break, and then finally you kind of have to catch up to the rest of your contemporaries and kind of, you know, and actually be an adult and that kind of thing. So I think it's important to have those little breather periods, you know.
Did you say Tommy Lee?
Yeah, Tommy Lee.
He looks like he's 17. I've backed Tommy Lee. He's like been 20 years old looking wise for 20 years.
It must be all the sex.
I think you have both sides. You have people that look like they're teenagers for forever, and people that look like they're 80 years old very quickly. It really depends how you treat yourself.
I think that also you have the ability to, being an entertainer, an artist, you have the ability to kind of like write everything off and be like, oh, I don't need to care about that kind of stuff. People take care of it for me. And I think that taking the time off and what everybody went through personally and what everybody went through with artistic stuff they were doing, I think really enhanced the vibe that we want to be adults, and we do actively participate in the world community as at large, and don't just expect our tour manager to do everything except get us coffee all the time.
What's the most adult thing you guys done?
Not the penis photos.
I don't know.
Online banking.
That's kind of, I was trying to think. It's kind of, yeah, somewhere in that ballpark, just like, you know, paying bills.
Woo.
Thanks, guys.
Any more questions? Yes?
Yeah, hi, I'm Hasif from Morningstar, Indonesia. I just got off the boat, weirdly. And yeah, so a couple of questions. My first one is, I was at a press conference when you guys were in Japan in 2007. And that was just after Transformers, the movie came out, and before G.I. Joe was about to go into production. So did you see the movie G.I. Joe, and or did you avoid it in order not touring your chocolates again? And yeah.
Avoid at all costs. That's how I look at it. That's my
I
personal.
watched the first one. It was entertaining.
I kind of like G.I. Joe Retaliation. I think they did the characters pretty rad, and then Bruce Willis does. Patrick can actually do like a pretty good Bruce Willis like face. No, the face.
No, that's not recall. I just said
Okay, whatever. He kind of like he does that face a lot in the movie, so that's great.
My second question is, before you decide to get back together and make the album, you had like some kind of big meeting and you know, to determine how things were going to be from Vietnam. And I think one of the things was that Joe, you wanted more songwriting. So you know, how did that work out? Were there many fist fights, you know, trying to get to where you wanted?
No, I don't think there was any fist fights. I think that's something everyone else really wanted as well. I think that's kind of part of the reason that I personally wanted to take a break back in 2009 was to go write music with other bands, other people, so I could bring those experiences back to Fall Out Boy. And once I think everyone saw what I was doing, they wanted that more out of me. If that makes sense.
And it was kind of there weren't a lot of fistfights. It was kind of it's funny. I kind of put myself in a tough position because at once I intellectually was like, we really need to do this. You know, Joe should really be more involved. You know, I know that that's something he wants and whatever. At the same time, I had a really comfortable spot where I always wrote all the music and it was very fun and I got to kind of do what I wanted. And so I had to I volunteered to give that up, which felt kind of weird in the studio at times where I'd be like, wow, you know, I would love to give my input here, but I know that my plan was to be, you know, to allow for a lot more space. So I think that might be the most adult thing. Back to your earlier question, that might have been one of the more adult things that I've done was was actually just let that happen, you know.
All right.
I actually have two questions with regards to your current album. When you first took a break, fans and media were all quite shocked, and people weren't exactly expecting a reunion. So when your album came out, it seemed quite apt that you made your first track, The Phoenix. Was that a conscious effort? It seems like you guys were rising up from the ashes, defying all odds, and coming back again. So was that actually a conscious effort on your part to put that as the first track?
I think when we were writing the song, or when I heard what these guys had done, it seemed like it was going to be really important, and Patrick had picked out like lyrics that seemed like they married with what we were doing, and I think that more than anything, there was a lot of people talking about like, will there be a reunion tour, or like, you know, like, I don't know, like, so all kinds of like kind of like goofy stuff, and no one really like expected a full album, you know, right away, finished or whatever, and so it was always about new music, you know, and the idea of doing the next thing, you know, version 2.0 of Fall Out Boy.
And gentleman over there has a question for you.
Stephen from E! Entertainment. I just want your take on kind of the current state of music at the moment. Obviously, 4 years ago, 4 years is a long time for music, your contemporaries were different maybe, or your rivals were different than they are now. What's your take on, two questions then, what's your take on music now, and who would you say your main kind of challengers or rivals are?
I think that there was obviously like a place that we come from that was a scene of bands that, like, you know, it was a counterculture that happened that was then embraced as the culture, kind of, you know, and I don't know. I think because we got asked a question the other day about, you know, what do you label yourself, and I think it's just, we're Fall Out Boy at this point. Like when we were talking earlier, we were talking about Metallica, and like when people talk about Metallica, they don't say like, oh, Metallica, the rock band. You say Metallica, like, sounds like Metallica, you know, whatever. And it takes a long time to do that, and I think that it's a journey that we're on. But it's kind of weird. I mean, we feel a little bit isolated, you know, like actually like an island kind of now, because it's not necessarily obvious, I guess, who our contemporaries are, and I don't know that there's. I think that the weird thing about music is that it's really easy to shout from your garage, you know, and say like, I'm the coolest guy around, and look at the fucking cool socks I wear, or whatever people say. But that to do it at
they say that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the talk is, you know. They don't let me in those areas. But I think to do it at involving pop culture, and to do it at radio, like, you know, for us growing up, it was always important to have a band like Green Day putting out Dookie or something like that, like something that like the kids who are a little bit odd are like, oh yeah, I can relate to that. Like I'm okay, you know, or whatever. And so that was something that was important to us to do. And I don't know that. This is me speaking personally. I don't think that there's enough rock bands doing that right now, currently. I think that there's like a lot of rappers, there's a lot of DJs, but I think more rock bands should be doing it.
So would you say that the current state of music isn't in a really good place as it was 4 years ago?
I wouldn't say it's not in a good place. I'd say it's when Pete talks about rock, I think there's and when we talk about rock, say rock and roll, and we say that, I'd say the state of the idea of rock and roll is in bad shape, because I think we've talked about this a lot, but I think there's this we put out the record in this moment where that term, you'd say rock music, and it was so distilled down to like, okay, this haircut, this jacket, this motorcycle, these 4 records that were put out in 1975, that's all that rock and roll is and will ever be. That's kind of the mindset. And that's not what it really means to us, or what it really means, period. I mean, it's a broader thing than that. And so I think, I guess, certainly, again, at the time that we made the record, I can only really speak to that, because honestly, we hit the ground running. Like, haven't really been able to pay attention to a lot since then. But when we put out the record, yeah, I would say that the state of the idea of rock and roll was kind of lame.
But the state of music is
Yeah,
it's
separate
but I mean
the
that's subjective. Like one person can say the music's great, and then another person can say it's terrible. And there's a lot of awesome records getting made all the time. I think the way music fans treat music maybe could be a little better sometimes. As far as like it is a commodity, and the industry's been terrible for a while. So I mean, like that's not news,
It's in flux. It's a bunch of guys in suits trying to put a Band-Aid on a corroded artery. It's just kind of, and the kids are like, well, what the fuck are you doing? This is guy just chopped the guy's head off, whatever. I think that,
and it makes it confusing, I think, for music fans as well.
But I think it's like, when you go out there and find it, I think that there's so much more broadcast now, so it's like there's a lot more noise, there's a lot more bands where I'm like, this is barely a band. But like when you go out and find it, like I remember like the first time I saw Skrillex, like the stuff that he was doing, I was like, this is mind blowing. Like that is heavy metal, that's rock and roll, and the kids were going crazy, and people were like, what is it? Like everybody in bands were like, what is that? That's just noise. And it's like, wow, we are our dads, so.
True. Totally.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what someone was saying about like the Beatles.
Yeah. What about that's an amazing point, because that's so real that like when Skrillex is doing his thing and people are like, oh, that's noise, and you're like, can you hear yourself right now? Can you put yourself back in 1960 whatever when everyone was looking at like
the sound of the last nail going in the coffin.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
Over here.
Hi, yes. To build on Stephen's question, I just want to ask. I understand for this album there is a level of sophistication that wasn't that is how do you call it? It used to be a lot more rougher the previous albums. So is this a deliberate effort to engage the younger fans, the fans that have never heard of Pop Boy before?
It sounds more sophisticated. Is that what you said?
There's a level of sophistication that wasn't.
I think that.
Sorry, do you mean it sounds more like commercial?
No, it sounds more what do you call it? Yeah, it sounds more adult. Yes.
Oh.
I think it's definitely, I think it should be the job of bands who are trying to constantly make music and progress to challenge their fans to listen to what they're making, to listen to like kind of the new art that they're trying to make, I guess. And I think based off of kind of what we've been saying, we're trying to challenge the idea of what rock and roll is as an idea, not as like a specific kind of music and specific kind of style. So there's some things I guess we're trying to challenge people on a little bit.
I mean, I think too, a big thing for where a lot of the music starts, because I would always say that even though, when, in the eras where I was writing the majority of the music, or even this record where, I still have a pretty big role in putting everything together, I guess. I'd say that the music always comes from the lyrics to me. Like it's always something that I find in the lyrics, and
which is essentially me laying on a couch and Patrick being like, I'm not that kind of doctor.
Crazy. But I'm always finding a lot of the music there, and I feel like then you have this set of songs, and you look at them and you go, well, what is this? How are people going to react to this? And the reality is you can't ever really worry about how people are going to react to it, because you are your art. You are who you are, and that's just it. And the more you kind of mold it to in any direction, imagining what people oh well they'll really like this, that you're more likely than not to not have that work in your favor. So I guess you kind of just have to do your thing and not worry about it. And I guess that's kind of what we do, and so I wouldn't. So I guess the sophistication thing, or any of the sonic differences, I would say, just exist, and and I don't think we worried at all about who was going to.
I mean, we made this album in secret, so we made an album entirely for ourselves. And if it was going to be really bad, we were just going to throw it away.
That's
true.
always been this fuck it, let's just make this kind of music that we like, that I love about Fall Out Boy. So how do you keep this despite being all grown up, having responsibilities and getting married and having kids, how do you keep that fuck it all attitude, like with your lyrics?
I think that there was, I was talking about whether you can be punk and have a kid, or be punk and be married and be, an adult. And you can be. I mean, there's nothing sadder than seeing the Fonz hanging out by himself when he's like 75 years old in a leather jacket. You can grow up and take hold and still be an artist and weigh out your responsibilities. And in some ways, it adds new ideas. I think my brain is open to a whole different path of thinking from chasing a 4-year-old around. I mean, it's divergent thought. You know what I'm saying? It's like
4-year-olds are pretty punk rock. They just are.
It's very super punk rock. Basically,
they thrash
circle pit all the time. But I think that for me, when I was driving to preschool a bunch when we had time off. I was listening to music on the radio, and I was like, I just feel like there needs to be a band that's on the radio that can be there for the anti-hero. You know what I'm saying? And it at that moment, I didn't feel like I heard it.
That's a good point too. Is that when we write the songs, we're not thinking about anything. We're just writing. After we have the songs, and we write lots and lots of songs, then there's kind of a selective, then there's the kind of thought where you go, okay, well, this song next to this song next to this song makes a different statement than this other set. And so that's where you kind of go, well, I guess we did look at this at the set of songs that we had, and we're like, well, there's not a lot on radio that sounds like this, but it sounds like it could be on the radio. And there's something unique about that, and something that I think is necessary about that, in kind of the same way that he was talking about Green Day, the fact that you had these bands, on, in pop radio, which pop is usually a 4-letter word, no one wants to be pop, but you had these bands that were inspiring people to be not so in a box, and so I guess we kind of look, you aspire to that, yes.
Thank you so much, guys. And we're really looking forward to the concert tomorrow, Say Rock and Roll Tour. Go get your tickets at cystic.com.sg, Fort Canyon Green. It's going to be epic. Is there anything that we can look forward to other than this awesome album? Are you going to be playing some of your classic Fall Out Boy stuff?
Are we doing a birthday party?
Are you really? It's my birthday.
I know, over here.
Well, hopefully I get a birthday song tomorrow. But we'll be here, of course, Sugar and...
You hear them all.
Awesome.
Just for your birthday.
I'm going to be a happy birthday girl.
You will.
Thank you so much, guys.